Over the next few minutes, I'll show you a solution built by Accruent, a Microsoft Gold partner that I've been working with. Accruent develops real estate performance management solutions with a particular focus on retailers. They develop solutions that are collaborative, web-based, and provide that end-to-end solution that manages the life cycle for the real estate processes of organizations such as retailers. Their customer base is a veritable who's who of retailers, names you'd probably know. Their current solution already uses the Microsoft platform, and over the past few months, I've been working with the Accruent team to help them understand how they would integrate some of the next wave of Microsoft technologies into their next generation solution for retailers. In fact, I'm going to show you that this morning, and I'm going to play the role of a real estate manager at a large retailer as he walks through making the decision for whether or not to renew a lease on an existing store. Let's have a look. So as a typical information worker, I would typically be spending a great part of my day on my desktop doing things like using Microsoft Word. In this case, I have a document open where I am about to renew a lease for a particular store. This is standard Microsoft Word, but you'll notice that Accruent has taken full advantage of that extensibility built within Microsoft Word to add their own tab, which brings up a custom ribbon that allows them to pull line of business information from their back office servers and pull that directly down to the desktop where the information worker, the individual contributor, is working on it and can take full advantage of it as they do their day-to-day tasks. As I click on any of these objects, you'll notice that a custom task pane opens up that allows me to see the various pieces of information. In this case, details about the store I'm looking at, or various pieces of analytics related to the stores I'm responsible for. In this case, I am working on this document, and so I want to integrate some of the information coming from that line of business information and pull that directly into the document. You'll notice that the document itself has various fields. The document is a Microsoft Word document, but it is an open XML document, and those fields are embedded directly in there so that I can maintain the security of the document even as I pass it on outside of the company, for instance. I'll update that document, and that allows me to start the process of renewing this lease. Now, the question here is, what were the steps that I took to make that decision to renew the lease? Let's have a look at that. A little while ago, I received an email in Outlook, obviously, and that email showed me that I was being notified, in fact, that I had a workflow that had been assigned to me. This workflow is assigned by the Accruent Store Lifecycle Management System. That lifecycle management system is using the Microsoft Office system workflow on the server side to assign a workflow to me. At the same time, it's issuing an email that's giving me some information. It's notifying me of the workflow, of course, but it's also giving me information related to that workflow and helping me to make that decision. It gives me some related information about the store that's related to the task at hand, but more importantly, it's allowing me to look at the store homepage. Accruent, about a year ago, made a big bet on Visual Studio 2005 and the ASP.NET web part technology. They took full advantage of that by re-architecting various pieces of their system using web services and web parts so that by doing that, they could very quickly build portals and dashboards for their existing solution. They're now reaping the benefits of that investment because the exact same architecture that is used in ASP.NET 2.0 web parts can be used exactly without change, literally, in SharePoint 2007. So those web parts that we had are now the web parts that we used in this custom portals that we were building before are now used in this collaborative environment where I'm not only building on top of my own solution, but I'm building on this investment that Microsoft's already made on this SharePoint collaborative environment. So I need to make a decision about this renewal. It is a lease renewal, and so the first thing I'll want to do is have a look at the existing lease. Let me open up that lease. You'll notice that I'm in Internet Explorer. The entire solution is built on a web-based solution. And what's happened here is I've opened up an XPS document viewer. XPS is the XML paper specification. And this document, the XPS document, allows me to maintain control around security and various pieces of information related to the document. At the same time, I can collaborate with others on this document. So for instance, you'll notice that there's some annotations that have been made by others on my team related to that document, so that as over the period of the 10 years or so that we have this lease, there's institutional knowledge that we can gather related to the lease that is embedded directly in the lease. So I can see from this option to renew clause that there's some information there. I understand what's related to that lease. Let me go back and have a look at some additional information about the store. Another important piece of information are competitors. And you can see over here on the right that I have a list of competitors. And that's important information, but it's given to me in a list view. What Accruent has done is they've taken that information and used Microsoft's Virtual Earth to build a mashup that combines both the information coming out of their line of business information about competitors, as well as information, visual information and mapping information related to that store location. And so as a result, I can have full control over this the same way I would with standard Virtual Earth or Windows Local Live. I can look at traffic and whether I have access, good access to this store, how close I am to highways and so on. I can switch into aerial view and look at this from the point of view of top-down photography. And an important, unique feature of Virtual Earth is the bird's eye view. From a retailer's perspective, looking at that location from a 45-degree oblique view gives me much better information about what does the neighborhood around that store look like. An important part of making that decision. Another piece of information that's important to whether I renew this lease or not is sales information. And here you can see I have a table of numbers giving me gross sales, employee sales, and so on. This table is actually an Excel spreadsheet. It's not your Excel spreadsheet that you would see on your desktop. It's actually running Excel on the server side, and we're using that as a business intelligence piece where I now, as an individual contributor or information worker, can build my own information portal and share that with others in my team without losing control over the formulas and the external data connections that are related to building this type of information. I can, of course, see the numbers, and I can see charting, of course, as well. So if I wanted to see the trends, for instance, it's a much better way to see that, of course, using the charts. As I said, this is Excel, and if I wanted to look at this on the desktop and I had the rights to do it, I could open it in Excel 2007 and make changes and post it back so that I can share that with others. Or I could open a snapshot and take advantage of that. So I've seen a bunch of different pieces of information related to how I renew that, whether or not I want to renew that lease for that particular store. The piece that's missing, though, is the customer piece. We've seen sales, we've seen competitors, we've seen the legalese in the contract. We haven't really looked at where the customers are. And to do that, I'm going to open up my demographics application, and we're going to switch gears a little bit. We've been in SharePoint now. Now I'm opening up an application which is actually a Windows Presentation Foundation application built, embedded in Internet Explorer and running, in this case, on Windows Vista. When it comes up, you'll see that it actually looks like a map, similar to the one that we saw a few minutes ago in Virtual Earth. The difference here is that this is actually a three-dimensional map and shows me my store as well as my competitors in the same way that I saw it a few minutes ago in Virtual Earth. And I can zoom in and change the tilt so that I can look at that. And that's really interesting, but it doesn't really give me much more information than what I saw earlier in Virtual Earth. What I want to see here is the customer data. And so I'll select my store, which is the blue push pin here, and I'll move over to my data menu. And here I can add some interesting information related to the store. So for instance, I can show the distance. Here I've added a 1-mile radius around my store. I may want to change that to 5 miles and show that. Now here we're actually looking at the San Francisco Bay Area, and that 5-mile radius puts us out into the middle of the bay where there probably are not a whole lot of customers. So I'm going to switch that from a distance radius to a drive time radius. And here we're actually querying MapPoint on the server side to give us a drive time polygon so that I know where those customers are. And I may want to change that from 5 minutes to 7 minutes. And again, that gives me a sense of where my customers are. So now I know where my customers are, but I don't know which customers are in that polygon. In order to do that, what Accruent does is they package up various pieces of demographics. For instance, in this case, we might look at household income, total population, male population, household retail expenditures, and so on. Package those up in a standard customer profile. And in this case, I have different types of profiles depending on various different store configurations. I'll choose the standard customer. And what that does now is it's actually retrieving census data. It's figured out which census tracts are within that drive time polygon and retrieved the customer profiles for those census tracts. Let me close that up so we can have a closer look. So now I'm looking at my census tracts, and of course, the higher and the greener, the better the indication that this is closer to my ideal customer. And so if I click on a particular census tract, this one's a 42, which is actually a pretty good score. I may have another one which is 11, not such a great score. Here I have a white one. This is a score of 0. For those of you that know San Francisco, that's actually the Golden Gate Park, and there's probably not a lot of customers there, at least not customers that are buying a lot of our products. And so now I can actually get a very good sense very quickly, visually, of what's going on with the customers and the demographics around the store. I can change the perspective of how I look at that particular store so that I can look at it from different angles and change the perspective, again, to look at it from wherever I might want to see. Now, I can see immediately that the store that I have is probably not in a very good location with respect to my ideal customer profile. And so what I want to do is look at what my market development team is doing. They've been out scouting new locations that have become available for me to open stores in. So let me come back to my data and show those available locations. And I can see that there is one store that is actually available in a particular place that's actually a pretty good place related to my ideal customer profile. Now, of course, I could actually go out and look at and go and talk to my market development team or look at the reports that they've provided. But what we're trying to do here is build an immersive experience that the end user enjoys working in and enjoys staying in and hopefully makes better decisions, faster decisions related to those stores. So rather than going out, I'm just going to zoom into that store and have a look at some of the information related to things like demographics. For instance, in this case, there's a pretty good space for parking, which is a good thing in San Francisco, so I like that. And I can look at other information related to that parcel, including store contact and perhaps even some bird's eye view photos to look at what that store looks like. So just from looking at that, I can have a pretty good sense that that store is probably one where I'll want to move my location from where it is now to this new available location. So over the past few minutes, I've shown you a number of things. I've shown you how, by taking advantage of Microsoft Office on the client side, Accruent is able to pull line of business data directly out of their back office service and pull them down to the desktop where end users can take full advantage of them to make decisions on a day-to-day basis. I've shown you how Accruent has taken advantage of SharePoint to build on top of the collaborative environment that Microsoft has provided and many customers are already using. And finally, I've shown you Windows Vista and some of the technologies in Windows Vista that allow you to take that three-dimensional view and allow you to build visualizations that help your customers and your end users to make better decisions faster. I'm going to stop there, but if you do want to get a little bit more detail, we actually posted an interview of the Accruent team that built this solution. We posted that to Channel 9 on MSDN this morning. I should also mention that Accruent is actually here. They have a booth in the exhibit area, booth 314. So if you actually want to go and have a look at the solution and maybe ask them some questions, feel free to do that. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sanjay.